Appleby from Holmes Murphy, and today's session is about various aspects of leadership. And we should have 4 industry leaders here on the call, and we've got a handful of talking points and things about aspects of their leadership in their companies and what specific topics on what they're doing and maybe an initiative that they've got going on. And I wouldn't mind, Darlene, jumping off on the session and you being our first guest. Darlene,
okay.
Darlene, can you introduce yourself, please?
Okay, I'm Darlene East. I'm the president and owner of Holmes Incorporated. And Holmes Incorporated is a concrete cutting, concrete demolition contractor in Houston, Texas. And we work the greater Gulf Coast, but we've traveled all over the world for clients.
Awesome, excellent. To a few of these questions, because it's kind of an interesting, juicy topic that we picked for you. And really, if I can ask you, Deb, first, I want to ask you, how many customers do you manage annually? How many customers do you have?
So I ran a little spreadsheet. So last year we invoiced 1,500 individual clients.
That sounds like a lot.
And I looked at my current aging, and I have 190 people who owe me money today. 190 companies. Well,
you're getting right to the heart of the matter, because really the topic for you today is, leading your company's top line. So I want to ask you about that. I've got a specific question or two here for you. Ready?
Okay.
Have you ever fired a client?
Absolutely.
Do you really want to run off revenue? That push-pull between getting revenue and keeping revenue, do you really run off revenue?
Some clients are just not worth working for. They cost you money all different types of ways. They're either too difficult to work for, too hard to get paid by, not safe, don't think about safety. There's any number of reasons why, or they're abusive in some way, and we just don't want to work for those kinds of customers.
Is it okay to fire a customer, Courtney?
Yeah. I think you have to. Sometimes you need to know who you can benefit and be a good vendor to, and then who's good for your business too. And it's got to be a win-win situation, or somebody's going to leave. And so we try to make that first choice sometimes.
Darlene, can you go back? You mentioned some things specifically there. Can you mention the warning signs? What are the warning signs you look for in if you're headed down that road for, I'm not sure about this client? What are those warning signs again for you?
So early on, some of the first warning signs are disorganizations. They're not on the site when they've scheduled you to be there. They don't have the proper safety barricading, trenching and excavation done. Those are some of the early signs. When you try to call them to verify, they don't answer, they don't respond to text, phone calls, or emails. That's the sign of a contractor who might be difficult to work for. And then after you work for them, if they don't pay you and you have to chase them down in the McDonald's parking lot, that's a problem.
We got to get paid, don't we?
Eventually, it's nice. This isn't a hobby.
Yeah, no kidding. You don't need the practice, do you?
I don't need the practice.
Can you relate a story?
That we also will fire them for treating our people bad. We're leading a team and we treat our people well, and we treat their people well. And if somebody can't be professional, we'll try to move away from that type of company.
And that's going to cross over into Bryce's session too, or his talk about professionalism and what he sees, some observations out there. But Darlene, I do want to get home on this topic a little bit more. You mentioned like when contractors are using you as a bidding service, how does that look and feel, and how do you reset the expectation back to maybe that general contractor? How do you manage that so you're not looked at as a bidding service?
Well, it's one of the things that Holmes does very well. Clients will call us up. Normally they'll give us the takeoff, or they'll ask us to do the takeoff, and we'll price it out, and we can do it very quickly, and we turn it around very quickly. However, if all we're doing is pricing jobs for somebody and they never give us the work, and they never come back and say why. They honestly, the estimating department uses us because we're fast and reliable, and the project management is choosing their friends, whoever they have, whoever they choose, and we're not that person. Then we just stop doing it. We just tell them we need to put our estimating to people who are actually going to use us for the project.
How many times does it take where you realize you're just a bidding service? Are you keeping track of the number of bids you're putting out there and not getting hired?
That's not something that we do on a formal basis, but it's pretty easy to see in our software when you have, 10 quotes and no jobs. That's a big red flag. Because most of the time my work is, we need it now. Sometimes it's, they're bidding something in the future, but for the most part, people are calling us because they need somebody to come fix their problem sooner rather than later.
Courtney, how many times will you bid somebody before you be like, throw up your hands?
You don't know if it depends on who it is. I mean, sometimes we don't align on the work. If it's something we're pushing into and trying to get some new work that we're not used to, we give a little bit more runway. But if it's something that we know we're good at, we know we're like Darlene's saying, if we're accurate and quick and we know our numbers, and then we know some people that use us, and we estimate less for them and doing that. So I'd say it's probably a handful, half dozen, 6 or 8 bids out with, because the kind of work we do is bigger, 6 or 8 bids out that get no response. And especially if I get no feedback, it could be as little as 3. You ask me to request 2 or 3 times, and then you don't tell me how I stood up and why I didn't get the job. We'll cut off early, because if you can't communicate and give us feedback so we can improve, then you're probably not a good partner for us.
I'm surprised to hear that, but it's enlightening too. I think that for the folks on the call, everyone's looking for stories from the real world here, which you guys are giving. I appreciate that. I like hearing this perspective, and I hope it's helping others on the call. Darlene, again, getting home on this topic here, or close to it, you had a story about a longtime customer that you chose not to bid, and what was the reaction?
Well, he was very shocked in the end, but he just was hard to get paid by. He, for years, and the problem was he was actually the sweet spot of our work, the work we are most profitable at, the stuff we really like to do. But he was the guy I was just joking about. We had to see his truck on the road and chase him down, and then he would give us hot checks, and he would promise payment, and it was awful. So finally, after, it's just not worth the pain. And even though he was in our sweet spot of work, I just got to the point where I just didn't want people having to work so hard to get paid. They weren't doing other things.
Do you have any former clients like that cleaned up that came back to you? Does that happen?
Well, that guy was one of those guys. We fired him multiple times before the final firing. Where he would come in and he would say, "Hey, please let us," and this has happened with other people too, but this guy specifically, "Please give me another chance. We've worked together for years." And then he'd slip right back in the bad habits. And, we just we're a small company, and we just manage too many people to have people who we have to fight that hard to get paid.
Any tips on?
He wasn't getting paid because he was, the work he was doing was either government work or residential, and he was getting his money. It was just, he just wasn't paying.
Yeah, that sounds abusive, like the relationship you guys were describing before, if they're abusers of your people or your systems. Yeah. Talk about, just real quick, new client selection. So if you're bidding to a new client, you have any selection criteria on when you're looking at the new client potential?
I have to say no. We work for everybody. We'll work for a homeowner. We'll work for the dry cleaners. We go drill one hole for somebody's thing. But the one thing we put in 2 years ago is if we don't have a credit history with you, like already an established account, you have to give us a credit card. So somewhat like a hotel, before we even put you in the schedule, we get a credit card. Again, my work goes from very big to very small. So most of these people are the smaller end. And I actually charge their credit card before we mobilize, just like a hotel. and I get approval on it because it just got too hard. So that's payment, and then that's probably our biggest criteria for new customers.
Well, I'm learning some things here. Thanks for that perspective, Darlene. It's again, it's refreshing hearing maybe some interesting or newer ideas or things that we don't talk about, how to fire a customer. Mm-hmm. Not really pleasant to think about, is it? But it sure is interesting to talk about. So, Darlene, one last question. It's kind of hard hitting. You ready?
I don't know.
Well, when they make a movie about you, when they make your movie, what actor are you going to choose to play you?
Oh, goodness. You couldn't have given me a heads up on that?
It was in the email this morning.
I guess I didn't read it all the way down to the end.
You can blame Bryce. You can blame Bryce for this one.
Okay, well, I have no idea, so I'm going to say Brooke Shields.
Yes, I like it. Well done, and thank you for that perspective. We're gonna go around the horn here. We're gonna go around the table, separate topics, separate speaker, and I do want to call on Bryce next. Is okay? Yeah. Bryce, you're up to bat. Step into the batter's box, my man. Yeah, here we go. So, Bryce, please introduce yourself for the group, and then we're going to ask about some things about you and your jam. What's going on out there, Bryce?
So we're in Denver, Colorado. So my name is Bryce Ballou. I'm the founder and CEO of Tradecraft Industries, and we're as we know it, the nation's first construction co-working space. So we're like a WeWork for contractors, offering flex office and resources.
What kind of size space are we talking about here, Bryce?
So we did a ground up building built out of steel shipping containers, which you can see in the background. So we set the containers into place, welded them into place. They became part of the structure. That's where a lot of our members store their materials, equipment. They all open out. And we enclosed it in a prefab metal building.
Remind the viewers here, the viewing and listening audience, what does Tradecraft do? Who are your customers? Who's coming into Tradecraft and using the space? Who hires you?
I know there's an Office Space quote here that I really, really want to say. So here's what we do and here's who we help. Contractors, especially the ones starting out, or small to mid-size, it's incredibly important that they stay mobile and flexible. They can't lock themselves into a 5-year commitment, 7-year, 10-year lease commitment when they're really just starting up. And if they're bidding 10 projects, they think they're only going to get 3, and then they get 7. It's very, very fluid, dynamic situation for a lot of those businesses. So what we do is you can come in and utilize the office space, the storage, the facility, the trailer parking. You can really use all the resources that a larger construction company would need, but you use them on demand. So you can flex and scale and grow into it, but you can also scale down. If some of those larger projects don't come to fruition or they're delayed, you can downgrade your membership, still have a mailing address, still keep some of those things, but you don't have to have a full office space, 2 office spaces, 3, things like that.
I think what I heard you say is it's built for maybe an emerging or growing contractor that doesn't want to sign a 3, 5, 7-year lease. You've got this flex plan to utilize space, office space, storage space, parking space. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
And I have it on your website. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
So go back to this profile. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Of companies that are using and need Tradecraft right now. So you mentioned there's a variety of size and type of contractors utilizing this model. Remind us what profile are those what do they look like? What do the contractors do? What are they looking like? Are there any traits in common? I guess is what I'm asking you.
Yeah, it's been really a fascinating experience opening up 4 years ago and then seeing who we attract. So we attract everybody from general contractors, subcontractors, commercial, residential, newly formed, 20 years in the business. It's really all over the place. The single trait that we've noticed is that they're not defensive. They realize that there's more to be had in collaboration with other like-minded businesses than there is. Nobody's here stealing other people's work. Nobody's stealing labor. Nobody's stealing materials. It's that's kind of an old construction mindset that's been hardwired into all of us. Is protect yourself at all times. It's like boxing and construction. That's what we do. But there's far more that can be gained in collaboration with others, and you're going to learn from how other companies are attacking some similar problems that you are.
the peer, I like the peer group thing. I think you were going there is you get to, it's more of a collegial atmosphere is what I'm hearing you say. Does that exist there at Tradecraft when people are coming in and out and working?
It does. We call it chance encounters.
Yeah.
So somebody's up getting a cup of coffee and they'll be talking with Chelsea, our community manager, or myself. Hey, this just happened on a job site. Do you know somebody that I could talk to about this? Why, you know what we do? We just had a member sign up, either talk with them or I know of a company, I've known them for 10 years. They're not members, but you should go and talk with Mark, or you could talk with Steve, or call them up, tell them I said what up, and ask them that question, because they're the ones that are really going to be able to help you out with it.
Because it's such a flexible environment and built that way, purposely built that way, can you maybe touch on why maybe some customers that you have in there have left or it didn't work out for them? Do you have any observations on why they were not succeeding? Can you relate like that?
That's been an interesting one. So we have a no solicitation policy. So we'll get some sales folks that go in the building. They say, boy, I'd love to just get in front of 115 members that we have. And we say, whoa, slow down. We'd love for you to be able to tell what it is you do and interact with members, but don't pitch here. This isn't knocking on door by door saying, passing out business cards. This is what we do. Can we do this for you? Real networking happens here. And in general, when you're meeting somebody and say, okay, what is it that you do? And who in my network would you like to be introduced to? How can I help you get what you need? Not what can you buy from me what I sell? That's not networking. So we've had a few folks that it just wasn't a fit because they were viewing this as part of their sales pipeline. And it's just not.
I get it.
The other type that really hasn't worked out here is the hustlers. We're very laissez-faire. We don't tell any contractors how to do their business. We do have a code of ethics. It is important to us. But the ones that are always out chasing the next hustle, I don't want to single out anybody in particular, but roofers typically. We've got some great roofers here. They've been here for from the very beginning. Other roofers, they're always trying to check the next hustle and we got this thing, and those type of folks, I don't know what it is. They don't seem to last very long here.
I understand the profile. This is being recorded, so protect.
We love
you, Bryce, please.
We love
You're good. You're good. No, this is real. This is why we're doing this, because we have to have these real discussions. That's what we're doing here, right, Courtney? We got to get real about this stuff.
Absolutely. I got Rusty here with me now. We had some tech issues, but I think we got a full panel now. So.
Hi, Rusty.
No, sorry about that, guys.
We got the full panel. Rusty, we're going to get to you. I promise. I promise. And glad to see you here. All right, Bryce, though, you get to see a lot of businesses. We want your perspective here. We want to hear about this because you get to observe not just 1, 2, but 130, I think you said was your customer base. I want to ask you about like organizing skills. And remember, Darlene said the people that aren't organized, she loses them quick or they lose her. It's just like not worth it anymore. Yeah. So when you're reflecting on what Darlene said, how can you tell when a customer or client's well organized? What do you observe that makes them successful? Maybe share a story here.
Yeah, so they keep things simple and straightforward, and they have clear processes. And I think that's for every business. That's for in construction in general. You know who you're talking to. You know where to get answers, and it's a clear line of communication. It goes up, you get an answer, and it comes back. If it has to go through board approval and it has to, the estimator said this, but the project manager said this, and then the superintendent said this, there needs to be that clear, simple line delineation of communication. That's really what we find here is you can kind of tell. And that just streamlines everything. That streamlines how we deal with them, how I can refer work to them, but it also streamlines all of their business and how they get work done.
It's good to hear that. I think you're maybe foreshadowing some things that Rusty's going to touch on about that communication through the lines, and we'll get there to Rusty later. But again, we're not done with you, Bryce. Bryce, we're not done with you quite yet. We want your observations. Okay, the next 12, everybody's talking about it. And by the way, no one really knows. The next 12 to 24 months, contractors are bracing, for potential down cycle. And you have said on your videos, construction is cyclical. We've all been there. We've all been doing enough now. We've seen the cycle. So it's either a down cycle or an uber competitive cycle. Rusty, we're talking about how many bidders are on jobs now. It's kind of getting it looks a little crazy until we hit the up cycle, I think. So Bryce, the question on the table is, any observations about the next 12 to 24 months as contractors brace for what's going on and what we're seeing going on right now? Anything out there you can tell us, advise us?
Let me check my crystal ball here really quick, my magic 8-ball. COVID was a great just kind of segue into this, because that's what happened. Nobody really foresaw it. And even though we as an industry are cyclical, just like you said, it's different for every segment of the industry. Larger general contractors just got hammered with COVID, because a lot of the larger projects that were supposed to get funded didn't. There was work that got pushed out. A lot of the smaller contractors, they've grown like wildfire. And so each of these cycles will be different for everybody, and everybody will be adjusting to them differently. I'd say what I have seen through a couple of these things. So I was a general contractor, in 08, 09. I was in school during 01. So we've seen it, and I've seen a couple of these things happen. So if you figure out your niche and you work it, and do the small things well, just the small steps, your small processes, pay attention to your focus and what it is you're doing, and keep your ear to what's going on, but don't really let that impact your business decisions. The world will happen, the election, whatever. Things will happen outside of your control all the time. But what is really important is that what is in your control is keep your overhead nice and lean, keep mobile as much as you can, be able to flex for that, and every single small step every single day, just do it as well as you can, because what's going to happen is that someday you're going to have an opportunity for a big leap, and it's going to be a client. It'll happen from out of nowhere, but those smaller steps are going to put you in a better place to be able to take advantage of that giant leap. And then it's just another series of small steps, day in, day out, just doing the small things right.
Excellent perspective there. I saw Courtney and Courtney. I saw Courtney and Rusty nodding there, and Darlene was in that too. I remember what Darlene said about her rapid response when she's bidding something. You respond rapidly, and I think that's part of it, Bryce, too, along with the reliability you said. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we have one more question for you here, Bryce. It's a hard-hitting question. Are you ready for it?
Bring it on.
Are you sure? I'm not sure the audience is ready for this, but you're going to get it. If Tradecraft has or had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, this is easy.
What?
Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run.
Born to Run.
That was the first. So I bought a record player for our front desk, and that was the first album that I played. It was Bruce Springsteen here, and that's how we got that show.
That's a good one, Bryce.
That's us.
That is a good song. I've heard it on the radio a few times.
Yeah, right.
I'll bring my vinyls up over the weekend. We'll jam. Well, we got to have fun with this stuff too, right? It's not
exactly. It's not worth it if you can't have a smile on your face every once in a while.
Courtney, I know you're going to get there on this one, aren't you? We're going to get there next. I think I got to go to Courtney next, Rusty. Okay. So Courtney Little, we want you to introduce yourself. A lot of folks know you. Turn that off. A lot of folks know you, but remind folks that don't who you are.
So I'm Courtney Little. Base Glass in Arkansas. It's really comprised of 3 companies. We have a construction company, a manufacturing company, and then a recycling company. I'm a previous national past president of ASA, and just glad to be here today. And Don, what theme song did you play for me there? You had something that came on when I started talking.
That was a
Or do
misstep.
I even want to know?
Technical difficulties. Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing happened. Nothing to see here. You mentioned, okay, so welcome, Courtney. And again, you're well known and your beard is righteous. So, but we do want to ask you about one thing you mentioned, one of your companies there. Can I go there with the, we've got a professional side that we're going to ask you about. Then we're going to ask you about the human side, the personal side of the business, which I know you love talking about and can share with us in some reminders. Okay. But first, professionally, you're a pioneer here, man. You're a pioneer. You said recycling business. I thought you were a contractor. What is this about recycling? Tell us about this thing. What have you invented? What have you done?
Well, 3 years ago, as we all know, recycling sustainability is a big push for everybody. And we've been big in our company doing that. And we found out 3 years ago that in Arkansas was one of the worst performers, bottom of one of many lists in the U.S. But so we saw that the stream was being reduced and probably going to be non-existent. And so since we're in the glass business and had a comfort level with the material, we just kind of woke up one morning and said, if somebody's got to do something about it. And so I was the most logical choice in my own mind. We reached out to some other leaders in town and said, hey, I'm looking at this. This drives me crazy. And they said, yeah, we need somebody to do something. Hey, why don't you do it? And I said, well, that was my thought, but I wanted some confirmation that I wasn't a Don Quixote chasing the windmill here.
Well, why does glass recycling matter? What's going on out there?
A couple of big deals. One, glass is the recyclability of glass is only second to water. I mean, the water we drink today is the same water that has been around forever. Glass is kind of the same way. It's 99.9% recyclable if you can collect it and crush it and put it back in something. So there's a number of products. And probably the biggest thing right now is that you can reuse it for more containers. So your beer bottle can be another beer bottle again pretty quickly. Same thing, wine and all that with containers. And then we're migrating that into the commercial side. There's not as much waste in commercial glass. Most of the fabricators and actual producers of glass do a pretty good job internally in their process. But we just wanted to help that out and get that done. The other side of it is that it takes up a lot of space. It's really heavy and it never degrades. So if you put it in a landfill, it's there forever. So it's a waste to put it in a pile instead of reusing it and saving the energy to make new glass.
That is interesting stuff. What I heard you say, it's the number 2 recyclable product after water.
Yep. That's
very crazy to hear that. Interesting too. I hadn't really kind of thought of it that way. And then another thing you just said there. Well, this idea that you are helping your community. I mean, I feel like you're kind of paying it forward here with getting this out of the waste system and reusing it. So, does your community like recognize this bold thing you're doing? How does it matter to you?
We didn't do it for that reason. Yes, it's made us. People appreciate it. We get a lot of positive feedback. Say a pat on the back is only about that far from a kick in the butt, and we get plenty of those. So it's nice to get them. But we did it because we live in that community, just like in construction. We're ASA members because we like to invest in the construction community. And so that means not just being a citizen and showing up and getting the work. It means, giving back and being part of it and trying to help other subcontractors, trying to be a good vendor to our contractors, and then being a good community person. I mean, I've got north of 100 employees, give or take, most of the time. And so they all live in this community, and we want them to have a good quality of life, and we want to give back and make sure that we're doing our part.
For folks with bold ideas, how are you promoting these bold ideas through, if I were to ask selfishly about, in social media or otherwise, how do you get the word out? How do you control that messaging, Courtney, or promote it?
That's been probably one of the hardest things. It's repeat. I mean, I read somewhere recently that we're not CEOs, we're CROs, chief repeating officers, that you just have to keep, I'll talk to people. We've been doing it for over 3 years now. And I'll still see somebody I haven't seen in a while. They go, hey, man, I just heard you're recycling glass. I can't believe that we had that problem. And I go, it's been talked about for, a decade in Little Rock. I jumped on it 3 years ago and took it over. But as we message and repeat and tell everybody we talk to about it, it still takes 10 to 12 times before it sinks in and connects. And we give on that side, but I'm just as bad as anybody else about hearing things 5 or 6 times before they sink in right. So
you're also tying back to what Bryce said about, keeping it simple and repeating, rinse and repeat. Yep. I think the good to great philosophy a little bit too there.
Exactly.
What is the, thinking ahead here before we shift the topic a little bit, if you were to predict if you're thinking ahead here, the future of recycling in the construction industry, what else are you seeing? What are you seeing out there, whether it's glass or otherwise? Do you have any words of wisdom on the actual, ability to recycle within our businesses here?
Well, the best news is that the construction industry has always done a pretty good job of maximizing use of resources and materials that we have to survive. But what we're seeing and what we've done are things like our manufacturing facility is completely solar powered. I'm working with some people that are trying to pull boards and things like that out of multifamily projects, and they're reusing them. And there's a market for them. So we're going to see a lot of opportunities, I think, with each of our individual materials to put those back in, into stream somewhere. So I think you have to be a little bit progressive still right now and do some research, but I think that's becoming easier to find places to move materials back into stream than putting them in the trash.
Gotcha. There is a rumor out there that lumber prices are up.
And steel and drywall.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to have to get better at this. But the short term is going to be an investment. It costs more to get recycled content. It costs more to find vendors who are doing the right things. But hopefully that'll become the rule and not the exception in the near future.
Thank you for that look inside your pioneering effort there on glass recycling, Courtney, and what the future might hold here too. It's a super fascinating topic. But can I shift a little bit, going from your community involvement and how you're paying it forward? You told me when we talked earlier this week about some personal observations about what's been going on the last year. And I know you want to acknowledge some things. And I think this is the human side of the business that you want to touch on. Again, your topic is leading by paying it forward, playing the long game, both professionally and personally. So I'm going to ask you, you mentioned something about chronic stress and the prolonged thing that we're in right now and trying to take care of yourself. You've got a few points here. You want to just hit these on the things you told me about?
Sure, I'll share them. And it's on the bottom of my emails. I actually borrowed that from an executive, one of the local hospitals. And it just really spoke to me that as we're going through this and as I'm doing several peer groups and other webinars, things like this, that it's kind of a common theme. And so there were just pandemic considerations that I put on there. And one is acknowledge the chronic stress of this prolonged, pandemic. This thing has gone on way longer than we thought it would. And it also applies to our daily lives. Life's tough. I mean, there's no easy button that's prolonged. So I think just acknowledging that we're all going through a pretty tough time here and trying to give some, maybe additional grace and mercy to people around us is really helpful, especially as a leader. Second, taking care of yourself daily. If you run your own batteries down and your energy down and you're not feeding yourself and doing some things that you like to have a positive outlook, it's really hard to put a smile on your face walking into your office in the morning, or if you've had a hard day doing it at home with your family. So I think you have to take care of yourself and kind of rebuild that energy. Third is focus on the silver linings. And I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna, but, even the worst things that I've done or been through, as a lawyer, when I had cases I lost, it meant a big deal to a client of mine, killed me when we have a project not going well, whatever. Something good usually comes out if I can back up to 10,000 feet and look at it. And so it's really having an attitude of looking for those opportunities and for the best of every situation, no matter how bad it feels. You'll hear a lot about gratitude practice now. And all the executives I know that have the best energy get up every morning and think of 3 or 4 things that they're thankful for. And if you start your day with that, you can kind of deal with more stuff. And then the last thing that I kind of put on there, actually a couple more, but one is watching out for others. When you see somebody struggling, especially leaders, we don't have a lot of people we can go to. You can't walk around your organization and say, I'm struggling, I need help. You need other people in your life that'll see you and go, something's wrong. And, what's going on with you? How can I help? And we need to be that person for others. When you see somebody struggling, calling and going, man, something doesn't look right. how, is anything going on? Can I help you anyway? You just need to talk about stuff, whatever it is, being that person, not, being not afraid to tell and also not afraid to ask and be part of that process. And then the last thing is just remember there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think it's a train. So, we're going to pass through this. We're already seeing some good news, and it's not fast enough and it's not enough good news, but every little bit counts. And we'll get through this just like every other crazy thing that humanity survived. This is just one more notch on the belt.
Well said, Courtney. Well said. Thanks for sharing the human elements of what you're doing, paying it forward, and leading in that way personally, how you conduct yourself. It's refreshing to hear that, and actually a really good reminder. Thank you for that. Really good reminders. Well, I forgot one hard-hitting question. You ready for the hard-hitting question?
I am. I'm prepared.
I think are you in Florida right now?
I am. I wish you could see this view. I flew from Colorado. I flew to Florida to present virtually in Colorado, from Colorado. So I left there.
Fantastic.
And down here. Yeah.
That was not the hard-hitting question. So have you ever needed to outrun an alligator? Or could you if needed?
So I looked it up, and their top speed, I'm faster than they are. Anybody in reasonable shape should be able to outrun. They hit 12 to 14 miles an hour for a short spurt. I can outrun an alligator. Have not had to yet. Don't plan to put myself in. Oh, actually, I have in New Orleans. Playing golf where they have the Zurich Classic. I had an alligator that wanted to come out of a sand trap to me. So I have actually.
There's that one time in New Orleans. See, everybody's got that story. There was that one time in New Orleans,
Yeah. Yep.
But is it true that they run faster for lawyers? They run quicker?
No, it's a professional courtesy. They try not. Alligators do not cannibalize. So I'm safe. Sharks, alligators, those things. I'm in good company.
I knew there was some ethics to the alligators, and now you've just proved it. Okay, thanks for answering that hard-hitting question. More to come here. In fact, I think we're turning to Rusty Plowman here. And Rusty, so glad you made the call. And it sounded like Courtney helped you, and you are not Courtney Little. You are Rusty Plowman. Tell us about yourself first.
Well, luckily, I'm sitting in the same room with Courtney because we're down in Florida together. And I'm going to just throw a little pun in for ASA, period. I've had the wonderful opportunity to be involved in this organization for a long time. And it's guys like Courtney and Darlene and Bryce and yourself, Dawn, that we've all got to associate with each other. And boy, have we learned a ton of things from each other. What can I say about that? The relationships that we build, the networking, what an amazing group of people. And it's exciting to be a part of it. And I just want to tell you, I had to throw that in there because I just kept thinking, how blessed am I to be able to know these people, to have guys like Courtney as one of my good friends that I could call him up anytime and he would be there. And I've got to play golf with him, so that's also good too. So, and my boys, so that was great. Yeah,
Orleans.
So, and myself, I'm Rusty Plowman. I'm co-owner of Delta Drywall in Denver. We've been in business since 1969. We're a commercial metal stud and drywall contractor, and was fortunate to be able to get an education at Colorado State University in construction management. Went to work for my dad in the mid-'80s, and have been there ever since. So that's kind of been my ride, I guess.
Looks like Bryce is CSU Ram up there in the corner too.
Rams.
Go Rams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've reminded us, Rusty, about how connected we are, and the relationships and friendships that have developed over the years. Truly, construction has to be the greatest team sport. It just has to be. Look at all of the folks involved, top to bottom, owner, GC, sub suppliers, guys like me, So it's an incredible universe that we get to exist in, Rusty. I couldn't agree more. And thanks for reminding everybody how lucky we are when we get up and be part of the greatest team sport in history, right?
Right. Every morning you get up and the people that you work with, the people that work for me, the carpenters, the finishers, those guys, they're the salt of the earth. They're the people who build our projects. They build places like Coors Field in Denver, and they build places like the towers downtown. It's not, we sit in our offices and do the project managing and estimating and collect the money and get people paid. But let me tell you something, the tradespeople, they're the guys that are building these towns. They're building these wonderful buildings that we build and get to see and use. And it's amazing. And I look back over a bunch of years and I'll be with my kids or family and I'm driving around somewhere and we worked on that building or we worked on this building. Dad, come on, you're crazy, all this, but you're proud of that and you're proud of the folks that are involved with you. And it's an amazing thing,
And there's pride in it. And I like hearing that too. Again, it's a great reminder of the things you all do that magically turn into these things we use. And it's thank you for that and great perspective. Can we touch on that, that universe of people, Rusty, that we talked about earlier this week? And this is maybe a mentor to everyone's going to identify with this next subject, Rusty, but maybe it's for the folks like that Bryce works with that are up and coming, looking to get to the next level, staying organized. I think there's a very, I asked you about what's tough right now. This idea that construction's cyclical and tough, everybody knows that. But I asked you, or you mentioned to me, you were fighting to get a change order paid. And I'm like, that is the bane of construction, isn't it? That's like, that's I don't know how y'all do it. And you walked through some things that I think you wanted to talk about in relating the process, the origin of a change, how you manage it in the system, and really the topic for you, your leadership talk is the buck stops here, time to collect. And you mentioned some things to me, Rusty. I wanted to ask you, how do you collect change orders, man?
It's difficult. It's actually, it depends on the project. It depends on the company that you're working with and the project managers. There's good ones and there's bad ones. And quite honestly, they can be within a company. Like you might work for the same company on this job and have a great, perfect situation. The guy's super great and very organized and get you change orders and get you timely payment and that kind of thing. And another project manager in that same firm may struggle with it. They may not be as good at doing their job. And so you have both places that you got to be. So how
do you organize? So changes happen. You want to get paid. You need to get paid for them. You're doing the work. How are you organizing the change order paper process so that when it gets down to the end of the job, you're telling me at the end of the job, I'm fighting for something I already did and performed. Everyone knows it. Now I have to have this fight. How do you go back and revisit? Wait a second, we shouldn't be fighting about this because, how do you organize that when you need to show it?
Okay, so there's kind of two things that happen on jobs. There'll be changes that come out that are owner driven or architecturally driven, and they'll come out in RFIs or ASIs or different methods where you get the information and your team in your office, your project managers have an opportunity to price that and record that. So whenever we price a change order, it goes into our system. We use a foundation software system, change order process, and then it's logged into the computer. Then we keep a hard file on everything too, so that we have a place we can go get it and look at it and thumb back through it. So that's part of it. The second thing that happens on a job is, in particular, is a job gets the schedule is pushing really quick and they don't have time for this necessarily paperwork, but somebody comes out there and says, hey, we don't like this wall right here. We want to move it 6 inches over or do something like that. And so my guys will write a field work order ticket and get it approved by the person in the field for the hours and the time that's worked. So we log that, then we send it into the office. The hours are calculated. We have a T&M rate that charges that particular work order ticket into what we call a change order submittal. And it goes into the file as well. So you have ones that are priced by the project management team, and then you have ones that are initiated and done in the field, but you track them all. You have them all in your computer. You have them all there to potentially get a change order to collect. The important thing here is that if you don't have a change order with most contractors on the change order submittal, you can't bill for it. So you have to get a written change order from the project manager of that job that you can bill for the change order.
Have you ever refused to do more? Have you ever refused to do more work?
What's that?
Have you ever refused a customer to do more work until you have an approved change order? Because you're moving it around.
Yep,
really?
Sure have. Yep.
What was their response?
There's so much out hanging out, and you go, hey, you haven't approved all these other change orders. I'm not doing any more change order work until you get this approved, and we're done until you get it approved. And I've had to do that on several occasions. But here again, that's you paying attention to your books, looking at your logs and making sure that, things are getting collected up. In my position, that's my responsibility to look at all my project managers' work to make sure that they're tracking it, because sometimes they get busy doing other stuff and they forget about that project for a week or two, and pretty soon it stacks up, and then you're like, hey, where's your change orders on this job? So it's a constant review process. You got to go back and look at your books. You got to go back and look at each job and check your change order situation. My gal in my office, that's my controller that does billings with me. She sends me paperwork on all that every month. We look at it every month, and she makes red notes on my billing sheet so I can see where all my change orders are hanging out, so that I personally can go back and go out to my staff and say, hey, we got to go get these collected. Sometimes that requires me to make phone calls to the main guy, because sometimes I'm not getting help, and sometimes these PMs are kind of, not doing their job, and I might have to reach out to an owner of one of the general contractors and tell them, look, I got to get some change orders here, boys, or we're not going forward.
Wow, that's bold. You mentioned Foundation. Are you tracking this stuff in Foundation software?
We are.
Okay.
We switched over to Foundation. It's been about 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
We had our own system that we developed and a guy built for us, and we used that for a bunch of years, and it was a really good system. Unfortunately, that IT guy had a heart attack and died. So we were without an IT guy. So we're in big trouble, and we run our payroll and everything off of there. So we went to Foundation, and they were the ones that had a system we liked. There's lots of them out there. That one worked for us, and we picked that one and used it, and we're happy with it. So little plug for Foundation, I guess.
Rusty, let's get to the punchline. The de-evolution of the change order, when it becomes a fight at the end of the job. Your job's done, and now you got stuff out there. You got to get paid, and whether or not the general agrees with you or not, that de-evolution, and then bringing it all back when you're organized and saying, hey, here's how much you owe. What's going on here? I need to be paid. Can you talk about some negotiating tips? You mentioned customer trying to backcharge. You're like, well, we had to clean up after you. So that de-evolution at that point, that how do you control that? Do you have any negotiating tips at the end of the day to get paid?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of a history lesson here. When I first was more involved with running the company from an owner standpoint, I had a project, and we probably didn't pursue the change order thing as readily as we should have along the way. We kind of let it drag out to the end. And then I went to go sit down with this particular contractor and iron it all out. And they came to the table and said, oh, by the way, we have all these back charges that we're charging you for cleanup and doing this other stuff that they never told us about, and said, we want you to cut your price over on this side to pay for this over here. So you put me in a bind. So, I would tell up other people, don't let yourself get in that position. Keep track of it every month so that you don't have to get to the end of the deal and change it. Another thing I found out that can be a problem, and it's still a problem in my company, is I get foremans that do work order tickets and they hang on to them. They don't turn them in timely. And then comes in the office, and it's 2 or 3 months down the road, and I send it in, and the owner goes, what's this? And it's terrible. It's a horrible thing. In fact, I just did one the other day. I had to go down and meet with the guy. We're doing a giant custom home that we're doing down in Denver. That it was a commercial build kind of to begin with, and we went back and did this remodeling, and the owner's been in changing tons of stuff, and there's a laundry list of work order tickets, and some of them were kind of started back several months ago and completed now. And I had to sit down with the contractor, who's very fair. He's a good contractor. And I had to negotiate a little bit of the time, because he felt like maybe the time wasn't accurate, or that the guy might have padded the work order tickets a little bit, which can happen with your field. You have to tell them, guys, don't pad your work order tickets. Be honest, but sometimes you might have a problem with that. So you got to go back and remind folks, hey, we're honest business folks. Please do your work order tickets and be fair with people, and don't pad work order tickets. That's not how we play the game. And try to do it that way. So that I would offer that up as advice.
Final question on this of negotiating a change order at the end of the day, or that situation you went through. Rusty, what percentage of the time, how many times out of 10 Do you have to, are you having to take a haircut on what you're supposed to get paid? If it was the full change order or not, how many times for the audience, percentage wise, out of 10, do you choose to take a haircut?
I would say that you probably 1 out of 5. You know, there's 1 out of 5 jobs that you're probably going to have to do some movement on, you know. And then when the market gets tighter, I would say that goes up to maybe 1 out of 3. So,
okay. Hey, that's the kind of real discussion we were looking for today, Rusty. So thank you for that. And I've got not your hard-hitting question quite yet, but you had mentioned the process and owners. And so I think you wanted to touch on a point here about what's going on out there right now, or in general, just as a business practice about, you know, when we're speaking about owners, how often, because you're a sub, mainly a sub, almost always a sub, yes?
Yes, always a sub.
Okay, then how often are you getting confirmation of project financing from the GC via the owner? How often does that happen? You as the sub, how often are you getting that? And when do you ask? What are a couple questions here?
Well, first of all, I would say probably not enough. It probably needs to come up often, but especially when your market's the way it is and things have changed, you know. Like I was telling you when we talked about this, Don, some of my smaller guys and stuff where it's a smaller project and that you know that your risk isn't maybe quite as bad, and you trust the guy, you've done business with him for a number of years, and you have a pretty good clientele. But let's say I bid something, it's a hard bid job, and you know there's several people bidding and it's pretty large, and we're going to go and get a new contract, and we're going to sit about. So typically, you know, we go and sit down and scope that particular contract and go through it. And one of the questions I always ask in those meetings, whenever I get the chance, be it Zoom or live now, you know, is that, hey, how's your financing? How's your payments been? What's your money like? You know, what are your terms? How soon are you turning payoffs around? And I ask the guys straight out every time I get the chance, because number one, that puts them on notice that I'm going to be checking. And number two, is that gives you a good idea. Let's say you have a job that's they're notoriously paying 60 days. You might have to go back to your vendors and say, hey, I want to do this project, but I'm going to tell you right now that, you know, this is 60-day money. You might have to work with me a little bit on payment terms or something like that. So it gives you an ability to be a little more flexible and to work through some of those issues. Or you may want to walk, you know, if it's 90-day money and you don't want to carry that and you don't want to be the bank, then you may just want to say, hey, I'm not signing your contract because your money's too slow.
Well, so go 2 more questions in our 2.5 minutes left here. When is the right time to ask for this financing information? When is your ideal time to ask for this, Rusty?
I think when you're getting ready to sign a contract. I think when you're coming to contract terms, because there it's, you know, it's you're either going to sign it or you're not. So you sit there and you have that opportunity to say, hey, I want to know because I'm not going to sign this contract unless I know. And so there's leverage there. If you're asking after you sign the contract, you're already going to be in trouble.
Okay. I can see Courtney's wholeheartedly agreeing with you in the same room, by the way. Not weird at all, but that's okay. I got one last hard-hitting question, and then if people have comments for the panelists or questions, maybe we can sneak in a question here, but really tough question for you, Rusty. If you're in Florida too, so if you fell off a cruise ship,
right?
How long could you tread water, bro?
Oh man, I would like to hope I could tread water for at least a couple of hours, maybe, you know. I don't know.
Over under 120 minutes.
I remember doing that when my kids were in swim team when I was a younger man, and we all had to get out in the pool and tread water for a while. And if you don't go crazy, if you keep your head on straight, you can tread a little longer than if you panic or get in trouble. So I guess in the construction world, we should probably not panic right away. Sometimes you got to sit back and take a deep breath and then relax a little bit and not panic, and you'll probably resolve things a little quicker than if you're going to drown and not tread that water. So
coming back to construction, love it.
Right,
any comments or questions from the audience there before we close up shop here in a minute and a half?
I think Rusty's asking.
One more time. There we go.
Okay. Can y'all hear me okay? That speaker? Okay, I just want to make sure to. Yeah, I think that, you know, like he was saying with the change orders, that's something we and being proactive early and doing that in a relationship. But one of the things we've done with vetting some of the clients, the ASA can be a good resource. If you have a reluctant owner or a contractor don't want to give up, guess who else knows how that financing, how payments have gone? Other subcontractors.
That's right.
So I'll reach out to somebody else and say, have you done work at that hospital? Have you done work with that contractor? Before I'll do that. So, and I think Darlene was talking about vetting new customers. That's the best place to go, is your fellow subcontractors in the market and say, do you have experience? When somebody comes in from out of state, I can call. If a Texas person comes in, I call Darlene and say, hey, this contractor's coming to do this one-off project. Well, she says, yeah, they're great. They pay good. Here's my favorite PM, who's their president's off, name, blah, blah, blah. Then I know I feel more comfortable than if she says, no, my experience has been terrible. I may still take the project, but I'm a lot less likely than if I get a good report from another subcontractor who's been treated fairly.
Well, the other thing too is in your local chapter, you have your business practice interchange. So as long as your attorney's there and can kind of monitor the thing, you can all sit in a room together and talk. You can bring up any contractor that you want and ask, hey, how are they doing? Another thing on the national side is I've gotten to talk to Courtney and to Robert Albany about contractors that were back east and stuff that I contracted with. Those guys saved me a bunch of money because they told me how to deal with this guy, and I knew how to deal with him, and we dotted our I's and crossed our T's and was really proactive about change orders and getting stuff signed, and I got paid. I know for a fact the steel guy got screwed out of about $100K because of that. So how much is this worth? It's expensive.
ASA pays.
Yeah, I like hearing this peer-to-peer. Again, it comes back to that team sport thing, but the ability to listen and hear from your peers, and you're able to do that freely. I dig it. I love hearing that. There's folks in the industry that sponsor peer groups, and it's always fun to hear, what's going on there. I know our captive insurance division at Holmes Murphy up in Des Moines, they're big on the peer-to-peer analysis and discussions over the years. So I know it works. I'm glad to hear these real life stories. It's fun. I don't know about y'all, but I had fun. We're 1 minute overtime here and we're still going.
I didn't get to say hi to Darlene real quick. I wanted to say hi. So
hi, how you doing? It's good to see you. Wish I could be there. If my house hadn't flooded, I would be there. When to be three of us in Florida.
You hanging in there, Darlene, with that?
Yeah, I'll be happier once all the decisions are made and I can go back to doing, work, not, decorator stuff. And the insurance adjuster comes by. He hasn't been by. It's been a week.
Yowza. Damn insurance. Rusty, you missed her hard-hitting question, I think, but she chose Brooke Shields to play her as the actor to play her when her life story is filmed.
Darn it, I couldn't get on, and I'm disappointed. It's recorded, though, so I'm going to go back and watch it, Darlene.
I wholly agree with you. It's going to be a great choice there.
Hey, listen, for who's left, 20 people there's still left or so, thank you for listening in. We wanted to pull from various leadership topics. I know it was protecting your bottom line, building your top line, but I think all these little things that we cobbled together here on the call, I think we got there. I think we had some tips and techniques to propel us forward. That was the whole idea. Thanks for playing along.
Yep.
You're awesome, man. Great job, Don.
Thanks, Don.
Oh, we had fun.
Thank you. It was fabulous.
You're fab. Come on, Brooke Shields. You're fab. Never gets old, though. Let's keep telling ourselves.
You're never going to live that down. I can tell you that.
Enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody.
Tough question. I didn't study.
If you liked what you heard here, I'm posting a 2:30 session with Nathan Fonseca about everybody's favorite topics. So maybe if you want to, I don't know, I'll try to make it entertaining. 2:30 will come along. It's happy hour, right? Something like that. It is in Florida.
Oh, we get to go back to Think Tank. So
yeah, we're doing.
Unfortunately, we haven't even been outside yet.
Yeah.
Hey, love you all. It was awesome to hear the perspectives. Bryce, Darlene, Courtney, and Courtney, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.